First contact and confusion. The skies above Earth had always held secrets, but none quite as profound as the message that crackled through the radio telescopes of the SETI Institute on a crisp autumn morning. Dr. Eliana Chen, lead astrophysicist, stared at her monitor in disbelief as the pattern repeated itself. Clear, structured, and undeniably artificial. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her fingers flying across the keyboard to run diagnostics. But with each passing minute, the reality became undeniable. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled, the UN convened an emergency session, and the world held its collective breath. Dr. Chen found herself thrust into the spotlight, explaining in countless interviews what little they knew about the signal. "It's an invitation," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "They're coming to meet us." As the days ticked by, Earth prepared for its cosmic visitors. A coalition of scientists, linguists, and diplomats formed, tasked with representing humanity in this unprecedented encounter. Among them was Dr. Marcus Okoro, a brilliant anthropologist known for his work on cross-cultural communication. "We're about to engage in the ultimate exercise in cultural exchange," Marcus mused during a team briefing. "Everything we know about first contact comes from our own imagination. We need to be prepared for anything." The chosen meeting site was a remote plateau in New Zealand, far from major population centers, but equipped with hastily constructed facilities to host both humans and potential alien life forms. As the estimated arrival date approached, the atmosphere crackled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. On the morning of first contact, the sky erupted in a dazzling display of light. A sleek, silver craft descended from the clouds, its surface rippling like liquid metal. It touched down with barely a whisper, dwarfing the human welcoming committee that stood in awe before it. A seam appeared in the craft's smooth exterior, widening into a doorway. And then they emerged. The aliens were nothing like the little green men of human imagination. Tall, willowy figures glided down the ramp, their bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with each movement. Their eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle, blinked independently, taking in the scene before them. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her heart pounding. She raised her hand in what the team had decided would be a universal gesture of peace. "Open palm, no weapons. Welcome to Earth," she said, her voice amplified by hidden speakers. The lead alien tilted its head, a ripple of blue spreading across its scales. It raised its own hand, mirroring Ileana's gesture, before speaking in a melodious series of clicks and whistles. A moment later, a small device at its throat translated. "We are the Xenixa. We come in peace and curiosity." The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions and initial exchanges. The Xenixa, it turned out, were part of a galactic community that had been observing Earth for centuries. Humanity's recent technological leaps had finally marked them as ready for contact. As the human team led the Xenixa delegation on a tour of the facility, Dr. Okoro couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The aliens seemed polite, even friendly, but there was an underlying current of confusion in their interactions. It came to a head when they reached the recreational area of the compound. A group of off-duty staff was huddled around a table, engaged in an intense game of chess. The Xenixa stopped, all 3 eyes focused on the scene. "What is the purpose of this activity?" the lead alien asked, its scales shimmering with curiosity. Marcus stepped in. "It's a game called chess. It's used for entertainment and to sharpen strategic thinking skills." The Xenixa conferred among themselves, their musical language rising and falling. Finally, their leader turned back to the humans. "You create conflict for enjoyment." Dr. Chen laughed nervously. "It's not real conflict. It's a simulation, a way to challenge our minds." But the aliens seemed unconvinced. As they moved on, Marcus overheard one of them say to another, "Perhaps we have miscalculated their readiness." The tour continued, But now the human team was on high alert, acutely aware of every reaction from their visitors. In the technology showcase room, the Zynexa marveled at quantum computers and fusion reactors. But when presented with a simple bicycle, they were baffled. "This seems inefficient," one of them remarked, poking at the pedals. "Why not simply use powered transportation?" Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's engineer, tried to explain the concepts of exercise and eco-friendly transportation, but the aliens' confusion only seemed to deepen. Things came to a head in the cultural exhibition hall. The Zynexa were fascinated by the displays of art from around the world, but their questions revealed a fundamental misunderstanding. "What function does this serve?" they asked, gesturing to a stunning abstract painting. "It's art," Eliana explained. "It's meant to evoke emotion, to make us think and feel." The lead Zinex's scales rippled with a color the humans hadn't seen before, perhaps their equivalent of a frown. "You create objects with no practical purpose." Marcus stepped in, sensing the growing tension. "Art is a fundamental part of human culture. It helps us express our inner worlds, our dreams, our fears. It's how we make sense of our existence." The aliens conferred again, their tones urgent. When they turned back to the human team, there was a new gravity in their stance. "We must speak with your leaders," the lead Zynexa announced. "There is much about your species we do not understand. We fear we may have made an error in initiating contact at this time." The human team exchanged worried glances. This was not how they had imagined first contact would go. As they escorted the Zynexa to the communication center to arrange a meeting with world leaders, Dr. Chen pulled Marcus aside. "What just happened?" she whispered. "Did we offend them somehow?" Marcus shook his head, his mind racing. "I don't think it's offense. It's more like they're struggling to understand us on a fundamental level. Our creativity, our seemingly illogical choices, it's all alien to them. But surely an advanced civilization would understand concepts like art and games." Eliana pressed. "Maybe not," Marcus mused. "What if their entire society is built on pure logic and efficiency? What if the very things that make us human, our emotions, our ability to find joy in the impractical, are completely foreign to them?" As they watched the Zynexa enter the communication center, a chilling thought occurred to them both. This wasn't just first contact. It was a collision of worldviews so different that mutual understanding seemed almost impossible. And yet, as Dr. Chen observed the aliens attempting to use the unfamiliar human technology to contact their superiors, she noticed something. One of the younger Zynexa was off to the side, quietly manipulating a Rubik's Cube left on a desk. Its scales shimmered with a new color. Excitement, perhaps, as it twisted the puzzle this way and that. "Look," she nudged Marcus, pointing discreetly. He watched for a moment, then a slow smile spread across his face. "Maybe there's hope for understanding after all," he whispered. As the human team braced themselves for what promised to be a challenging diplomatic situation, they couldn't help but feel a glimmer of optimism. If a simple puzzle could spark curiosity in these logical beings, perhaps there was common ground to be found after all. The first day of humanity's grand introduction to the galaxy was drawing to a close, but it was clear that the real challenges and opportunities were just beginning. The challenge. The morning after first contact dawned with a mix of tension and anticipation. The human delegation, led by Dr. Chen and Dr. Okoro, gathered in the compound's main conference room, awaiting the Zynexa. The events of the previous day had left them all on edge, uncertain of what this new day would bring. As the aliens glided into the room, their scales shimmering with subdued colors, Dr. Chen couldn't help but notice the young Zynexa who had been fascinated by the Rubik's Cube. Its eyes darted around the room, taking in every detail with unmistakable curiosity. The lead Zynexa, whom they had come to know as Cyril, stepped forward. "After much deliberation with our superiors, we have reached a decision," it announced, its translator conveying a tone of formality. We propose a series of tests to evaluate humanity's potential. A murmur rippled through the human team. Dr. Okoro leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Tests? What kind of tests? Cyril's scales shifted to a deep blue. We wish to understand your species better before proceeding with further cultural exchange. These tests will assess your problem-solving abilities, your technological aptitude, and your creativity. The last word was spoken with a hint of confusion, as if the concept was still foreign. Dr. Chen exchanged a glance with Marcus. This could be an opportunity to bridge the gap in understanding between their species. We accept, she said, hoping her voice conveyed more confidence than she felt. The tests began immediately. In a large hangar adjacent to the main compound, the Zynexa set up a series of stations, each housing what appeared to be advanced alien technology. The human team was divided into groups, each assigned to a different challenge. Dr. Tanaka found herself facing what looked like a featureless silver cube. Your task, a Zynexa instructor explained, is to activate this power source. Yuki circled the cube, her engineer's mind racing. There were no visible buttons, no seams, nothing to indicate how it might function. She reached out to touch it, and the surface rippled under her fingers like water. Fascinating, she murmured. Across the room, Dr. Okoro was presented with a holographic display showing complex, shifting patterns. Decode the underlying logic, his Zynexa overseer instructed. Marcus stared at the swirling shapes, trying to discern any recognizable sequence or pattern. It was like trying to read a language where the alphabet kept changing. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen found herself before a device that seemed to be some kind of advanced telescope. Locate the specified celestial body, she was told. But as she peered into the eyepiece, she realized with a start that the star patterns were entirely unfamiliar. This wasn't Earth's sky. As the hours ticked by, frustration mounted among the human team. The alien technology, while incredibly advanced, seemed to operate on principles that were counterintuitive to human understanding. Dr. Tanaka had made some progress with the power cube, discovering that it responded to specific harmonic frequencies, but activating it fully remained elusive. Dr. Okoro had filled several notebooks with possible interpretations of the holographic patterns, but each time he thought he'd cracked the code, the display would shift, invalidating his theory. And Dr. Chen, despite her extensive knowledge of astronomy, found herself completely lost in the unfamiliar cosmic landscape. As the first day of testing drew to a close, the mood among the human team was somber. They gathered in the conference room to debrief, all too aware of the Zynexa observers watching from the corner. "This is impossible," Dr. Tanaka muttered, rubbing her temples. "Their technology doesn't seem to follow any logical principles we understand." Dr. Chen nodded in agreement. "It's like they're operating on a completely different set of physical laws." Dr. Okoro, however, was deep in thought. "Maybe that's the point," he said slowly. "Maybe the test isn't about solving these puzzles using their logic, but about how we approach problems we don't understand." As they discussed their experiences, a commotion from outside caught their attention. Through the window, they could see a group of off-duty staff gathered around something in the recreational area. Curious and eager for a distraction, the team went to investigate. What they found was unexpected. A group of younger Zynexa, including the one fascinated by the Rubik's Cube, huddled around a table. On it sat an old transistor radio, a Polaroid camera, and a slinky. The aliens were manipulating these objects with an intensity that bordered on reverence. "What's going on here?" Dr. Chen asked one of the human staff members. The young technician shrugged. "They asked about some of our primitive technology. We thought it might be interesting for them to see some older stuff we had lying around." As they watched, one of the Zynexa managed to extend the slinky from one hand to another, its scales lighting up with a brilliant display of colors that could only be interpreted as joy. Another had figured out how to wind the radio, and when it crackled to life with music, the alien nearly jumped back in surprise. Dr. Okoro's eyes widened. They're fascinated by our simple machines, he said. Things that don't require advanced power sources or complex circuits. Dr. Tanaka nodded slowly. Because they operate on basic physical principles. Springs, levers, simple electromagnetics. These are concepts that might be universal. As they observed the scene, Cyril approached, its three eyes blinking in rapid succession. "We do not understand," it said, gesturing to the human objects. "These devices serve no clear purpose, yet our younger members are engaged by them." Dr. Chen saw an opportunity. "Not everything needs to have a clear purpose," she explained gently. "Sometimes we create things simply for the joy of discovery or to satisfy our curiosity about how the world works." Cyril's scales shimmered with a color they hadn't seen before. "Joy of discovery," it repeated, as if testing out the concept. "This is a human trait. It's part of what drives us," Dr. Okoro chimed in. "Our desire to understand, to explore, to create, even when there's no immediate practical benefit." The lead Zynexa was quiet for a long moment, its eyes moving from the delighted younger aliens to the human team. Finally, it spoke. "Perhaps we have been approaching these tests incorrectly. We sought to evaluate you by our standards, but it seems your species operates on principles we had not considered." Dr. Chen felt a glimmer of hope. "Does this mean the tests are over?" "No," Cyril replied. "But they will change. We wish to understand this human approach. Tomorrow, we will present you with problems from our world. We ask that you solve them in your way." As the Zynexa delegation retreated to their quarters for the night, the human team felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had stumbled upon a fundamental difference between their species, but in doing so, they had also found a potential bridge. "Get some rest, everyone," Dr. Chen advised. "Tomorrow, we show them what humanity is really capable of." As they dispersed, Dr. Okoro lingered, watching the young Zynexa still playing with the human artifacts. One of them had managed to take a Polaroid picture and was watching with rapt attention as the image slowly developed. "You know," Marcus mused to himself, "maybe our primitive technology isn't so primitive after all. In its simplicity, it allows for a kind of direct interaction, a tangible cause and effect that their advanced tech seems to have left behind." He made a mental note to bring more examples of human ingenuity to tomorrow's tests. Paperclips, rubber bands, even a simple lever and fulcrum. Who knew which mundane object might provide the key to unlocking the alien challenges? As night fell over the compound, both humans and Zynexa retreated to their respective quarters, minds whirring with new ideas and possibilities. The initial contact may have been fraught with misunderstanding, but a new avenue for connection had opened up. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities to showcase the unique problem-solving abilities of humanity. In her room, Dr. Chen sat at her desk, surrounded by notes and diagrams. She picked up a pencil, a simple tool that had served humanity for centuries, and began to sketch out ideas. As she worked, a smile played at her lips. They might not have the Zynexia's advanced technology, but humans had something just as valuable: the ability to think outside the box, to find solutions in the most unexpected places. Tomorrow, they would show the Zynexa what it truly meant to be human, unraveling the mystery. The third day of the Zinex's visit dawned with a palpable sense of anticipation. The human team, armed with a new understanding and a collection of seemingly mundane objects, gathered in the testing area. The aliens had rearranged the space overnight, setting up new stations that looked even more perplexing than before. Cyril addressed the group, its scales shimmering with what the humans had come to recognize as a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Today we present you with challenges from our world. We are interested to see your approach." Dr. Chen nodded, trying to project confidence. "We're ready." The team split up, each member approaching a different station. Dr. Tanaka found herself facing what appeared to be a complex network of glowing tubes, pulsing with energy. Her task, as explained by a young Zynexa assistant, was to redirect the flow to power a small device. Meanwhile, Dr. Okoro was presented with a series of alien artifacts, each emitting a unique vibration. He was told to arrange them in a sequence that would unlock a sealed container. Dr. Chen's challenge was perhaps the most abstract. She stood before a large, shimmering field of what looked like liquid starlight. Navigate the celestial currents, her Zynexa guide instructed, offering no further explanation. As the team grappled with their tasks, a new face joined their ranks. Dr. Amelia Okafor, a prodigy in theoretical physics, had arrived late the previous night. At just 26, she had already made waves in the scientific community with her unconventional approaches to long-standing problems. Amelia moved from station to station, observing each challenge with keen interest. As she watched Dr. Tanaka struggle with the energy network, a spark of recognition flashed in her eyes. "Dr. Tanaka," she called out, "may I?" Yuki stepped back, allowing the young physicist to approach. Amelia studied the pulsing tubes for a moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a simple rubber band. With deft movements, she began to manipulate the tubes, using the elastic to create new pathways for the energy flow. The Zynexa observers chittered among themselves, their scales flickering rapidly. Amelia's unorthodox approach seemed to both baffle and intrigue them. Slowly but surely, the energy began to redirect. Within minutes, the target device hummed to life. Dr. Tanaka stared in amazement. "How did you know to do that?" Amelia shrugged, a small smile playing on her lips. "The energy flow reminded me of fluid dynamics. I just applied some basic principles of resistance and flow control." Across the room, Dr. Okoro was having his own breakthrough. He had been listening intently to the vibrations of the alien artifacts, trying to discern a pattern. Suddenly, he snapped his fingers. "It's music," he murmured. Grabbing a nearby tablet, he began to plot the vibrations as if they were musical notes. A complex melody emerged. With this new understanding, he quickly arranged the artifacts, their combined vibrations creating a harmonic resonance that caused the sealed container to spring open. The Zynexa overseeing his station tilted its head, all three eyes blinking rapidly. "You heard the solution." Marcus nodded, excitement in his voice. "Music is mathematics made audible. Once I understood that, the pattern became clear." Meanwhile, Dr. Chen was still grappling with her celestial navigation challenge. The shimmering field before her seemed to respond to her movements, but she couldn't discern any logical path through it. Amelia approached, studying the swirling patterns. "Dr. Chen," she said softly, "I think I see something." Ileana stepped aside, allowing the young physicist to take her place. Amelia closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and then began to move. Her motions were fluid, almost dance-like, as she interacted with the shimmering field. To the amazement of both humans and Zynexa, the starry currents began to align, forming a clear path. Amelia opened her eyes, a look of wonder on her face. "It's not about forcing a path," she explained. "It's about finding the natural flow and moving with it." As the last challenge fell, a hush fell over the testing area. The Zynexa huddled together, conferring in their musical language. The human team gathered around Amelia, patting her on the back and peppering her with questions. Cyril approached, its scales now a deep, thoughtful blue. "You have surprised us," it said. "Your solutions were unexpected, inefficient by our standards, yet undeniably effective." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "That's the beauty of human problem solving. We don't always take the most direct path, but our creativity allows us to find solutions in unexpected places." The lead Zynexa was quiet for a moment, its three eyes focusing and refocusing, as if seeing the humans in a new light. "There is much we do not understand about your species," it finally said. "But perhaps that is not a flaw, but a feature." As the team began to relax, thinking the tests were over, Amelia's voice cut through the celebratory mood. "Wait," she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "There's something else here." Something were missing. She moved from station to station, her eyes darting between the alien devices. These aren't just random challenges, she murmured. They're connected somehow. Dr. Tanaka joined her, examining the energy flow system with new eyes. You're right, she said slowly. The energy patterns, they match the vibrational frequencies of Dr. Okoro's artifacts. Marcus quickly pulled up his musical notations, comparing them to the starry field Dr. Chen had navigated. And look here, he pointed. The melody, it maps perfectly onto the path through the celestial currents. Amelia's eyes widened. It's all one system, she breathed. These aren't separate challenges. They're parts of a whole. The Xenixa had fallen silent, watching the humans with an intensity that was almost palpable. Cyril stepped forward, its scales now pulsing with a color they hadn't seen before. You have seen what we did not intend to reveal, it said, its voice low. The true test was hidden within the tests themselves. Dr. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? What is all this really about? Cyril's three eyes blinked in unison. The challenges you faced are simplified versions of a problem that plagues our entire civilization. A crisis that threatens the very fabric of our society. The revelation hung in the air, heavy with implication. The human team exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. They had come seeking first contact, cultural exchange, perhaps even technological advancement. Instead, they found themselves on the brink of something far more profound. Amelia, her mind still racing with the connections she discovered, spoke up. Whatever this crisis is, I think we've just proven that we might be able to help. Our different way of thinking, our ability to see patterns and connections where you might not. It could be exactly what you need. Cyril's scales shimmered with a mix of colors, hope, fear, and something that might have been respect. Perhaps, it said cautiously, but understand this. If we reveal the true nature of our problem, there is no going back. Your species will be irrevocably involved in matters that span the galaxy. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her voice steady. We came here seeking knowledge, seeking to expand our understanding of the universe. If we can help you, if we can be part of something greater than ourselves, isn't that exactly what first contact is all about? The lead Xenixa was silent for a long moment, its eyes moving from human to human, as if gauging their resolve. Finally, it spoke. Very well. We will share with you the true nature of the crisis that faces not just our civilization, but many others across the galaxy. But be warned, this knowledge comes with great responsibility. As Cyril prepared to reveal the truth behind their visit, the human team braced themselves. They had come seeking the stars, and now the stars were about to reveal secrets beyond their wildest imagination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, armed with the unique problem-solving abilities that made them human. The mystery was about to unravel, and with it, humanity's place in the cosmos would be forever changed. The human element. The atmosphere in the conference room was thick with tension as Cyril prepared to reveal the true nature of the Xenix's visit. The human team sat in rapt attention, their earlier triumph now overshadowed by the gravity of the moment. Cyril's scales rippled with a deep, somber blue as it began to speak. Our galaxy is old, it said, and filled with civilizations far more ancient than either of ours. For millions of years, these elder races have maintained a delicate balance, guiding younger species as they emerge into the galactic community. The alien's three eyes blinked in unison before continuing. But now, that balance is threatened. A cosmic phenomenon, unlike anything we've encountered before, is spreading through the galaxy. It defies our understanding of physics, corrupting the very fabric of space-time. Dr. Chen leaned forward, her scientific curiosity piqued despite the ominous news. What kind of phenomenon? Cyril's scales shimmered with uncertainty. We call it the entropy wave. It moves through space, accelerating the heat death of everything it touches. Entire star systems have been lost, civilizations wiped out in an instant. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Dr. Tanaka was the first to speak. But what does this have to do with us? With Earth? The tests we gave you, Xyril explained, were simplified versions of the problems we face in combating the entropy wave. Your solutions, while seemingly primitive to us, showed in creativity we had not anticipated. We believe, we hope, that your species might see something we have missed. Dr. Okoro's brow furrowed. So you came to Earth not just for first contact, but to recruit us, to help save the galaxy. Xyril's scales flushed with a color that might have been embarrassment. Yes, but we had to be sure you were ready. The challenges facing us are immense, and involving an unprepared species could lead to catastrophe. As the team digested this information, alarms suddenly blared throughout the compound. Xyril's communication device chirped urgently. After a brief exchange in the musical Zynexa language, the alien turned to the humans, its scales now a pale, fearful green. "The entropy wave," it said, its voice trembling. "It's approaching your solar system far faster than we anticipated. We have hours, at most, before it reaches Earth." Panic erupted in the room. Dr. Chen raised her voice to be heard above the commotion. "What can we do? How do we stop it?" Xyril shook its head. "Our most advanced technology has barely slowed its progress. We came here hoping to find new ideas, but we've run out of time." In the chaos that followed, Dr. Ileana Chen found herself at the center of a media storm, trying to explain concepts that, just a week ago, would have been considered pure science fiction. She stood at a podium, facing a sea of reporters from every corner of the globe. "The entropy wave is not defeated," she explained, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Earth is safe for now, but the threat to the galaxy remains. The Zynexa and other alien civilizations are adapting our solution, but this is just the beginning of a long battle." A reporter raised his hand. "Dr. Chen, how do we know we can trust these aliens? What if this is all an elaborate hoax, or worse, a prelude to invasion?" Ileana took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "The Zynexa could have left us to our fate. Instead, they risked everything to help us, to work alongside us. That's not the action of deceivers or conquerors." As the press conference continued, Dr. Marcus Okoro and Dr. Yuki Tanaka were halfway across the world, overseeing the construction of Earth's first official galactic communication hub. The technology, a gift from the Zynexa, would allow instantaneous communication across vast distances. "It's like the internet," Yuki explained to a group of wide-eyed engineers, "but instead of connecting computers, it connects planets." Marcus nodded, adding, "And like the internet, it's not just about sharing information. It's about sharing cultures, ideas, ways of thinking. We have as much to learn as we have to teach." Meanwhile, in a secure medical facility, Amelia Okafor was recovering from her ordeal. The interface with the defense network had taken a toll on her body and mind, but her spirits remained high. A team of doctors, both human and Zynexa, monitored her progress closely. "How do you feel?" Dr. Chen asked, visiting her young colleague. Amelia's eyes sparkled with excitement despite her fatigue. "Like my brain has been stretched to the size of a galaxy and back," she said with a weak laugh. "But Ileana, the things I saw, the connections I made, it's revolutionary. I think I understand now why the Zynexa struggled so much with the entropy wave." Intrigued, Ileana pulled up a chair. "Tell me." "They approach problems linearly, seeking the most efficient solution," Amelia explained. "But the universe isn't always linear. Sometimes the path forward is a crazy zigzag that looks like a mistake until you see the whole picture." As Amelia shared her insights, Xyril entered the room, its scales shimmering with a mix of colors that the humans were learning to interpret as curiosity and respect. "Your recovery progresses well," the alien observed. "We are grateful for your sacrifice." Amelia smiled. "It wasn't a sacrifice, Xyril. It was an opportunity. The kind of opportunity every scientist dreams of." Cyril's three eyes blinked in rapid succession, a gesture they'd come to recognize as surprise. You faced possible death or mental destruction. Yet you speak of it as a dream. Dr. Chen stepped in. That's another aspect of humanity you'll come to understand, Cyril. Our drive to explore, to push boundaries. It's not always logical, but it's what's brought us this far. The alien was quiet for a moment, its scales rippling with thoughtful blues and greens. Perhaps, it said slowly, this is why the elder races chose to reveal themselves to Earth at this time. Both humans turned to Cyril, startled. Elder races? Eliana asked. You mean there are civilizations even older than yours? Cyril's scales flushed with a color they'd never seen before, perhaps the Xenixa equivalent of embarrassment. We may not have been entirely forthcoming about our place in the galactic community. Over the next hour, Cyril revealed a truth that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. The Xenixa, while far more advanced than humans, were themselves a relatively young civilization. The true power in the galaxy lay with races so ancient and advanced that they rarely interfered directly with younger species. The entropy wave, Cyril explained, is not a natural phenomenon. It is a test, created by the elder races to evaluate emerging civilizations. The revelation hit Eliana and Amelia like a physical blow. A test. Eliana gasped. But the destruction, the lives lost. Cyril's scales darkened. The stakes had to be real for the results to be meaningful. The wave never destroys more than a civilization can bear, but the threat must feel existential. As the humans struggled to process this information, Cyril continued, every race faces the wave differently. Some fight it with technology. Others try to flee. A few, sadly, turn on each other in their final hours. And how a civilization responds determines their place in the galactic community, Amelia said slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. At one point, frustrated with a particularly stubborn problem, Dr. Chen picked up a child's toy, a kaleidoscope left behind by a staff member's kid. As she absent-mindedly peered through it, twisting the cylinder, she gasped. That's it, she exclaimed. We don't need to stop the entropy wave. We need to refract it, like light through a prism. The Xenixa were baffled by the concept, but as Amelia and Dr. Tanaka quickly sketched out the mathematics, their scales began to pulse with cautious hope. As the deadline loomed closer, the team's plan took shape. Using a combination of Xenixa technology and human ingenuity, they designed a network of satellites that would create a massive multi-layered energy field around the solar system. Each layer would refract the entropy wave, scattering its energy and rendering it harmless. But there was a catch. The system required precise calibration, responding in real time to the wave's fluctuations. It needed a guiding intelligence, one that could think creatively and adapt on the fly. And Dr. Tanaka suggested, we could program it with our problem-solving algorithms. Cyril's scales darkened. There's no time to develop such a complex system. Amelia, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly spoke up. We don't need an eye, she said softly. We need a human. All eyes turned to her. She took a deep breath before continuing. The satellite network needs an intuitive, creative intelligence to guide it, something that can make split-second decisions based on not just data, but intuition. That's what makes us human. That's what the Xenixa saw in us. The implications were clear. Someone would need to interface directly with the system, putting their mind at the heart of the defense network. The risks were enormous. I'll do it, Amelia said, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. Protests erupted from both humans and Xenixa, but Amelia stood firm. I understand the theories better than anyone. I can do this. As the entropy wave approached, casting an eerie glow visible even from Earth's surface, final preparations were made. Amelia was connected to the hastily constructed interface, her mind linking with the satellite network. The moment of truth arrived. The entropy wave hit the outermost layer of the defense system, and for a terrifying moment, it seemed to falter. But then, guided by Amelia's intuition and creativity, the network came alive. It danced and shifted, refracting the wave into harmless eddies of energy that dissipated into space. For hours, Amelia guided the defense, her mind pushed to its limits as she navigated the complexities of space-time. The human team and the Xenexa watched in awe, as she did what their most advanced systems could not: adapt, create, and overcome. Finally, the wave passed. Earth, and the entire solar system, remained untouched. As the interface was carefully disengaged, Amelia collapsed, exhausted but triumphant. In the aftermath, as the world celebrated its narrow escape, Cyril approached the human team. Its scales shimmered with a color they had never seen before, a deep, radiant gold that seemed to pulse with respect and wonder. "We came seeking help," it said, its voice filled with emotion. "We found not just allies, but teachers. The way you approach problems, your creativity, your willingness to sacrifice for others, these are traits we had forgotten in our pursuit of pure logic and efficiency." Dr. Chen smiled, tired but proud. "That's the human element," she said. "It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it's what makes us who we are." As the Xenexa prepared to depart, now armed with new strategies to combat the entropy wave across the galaxy, Cyril made an unprecedented offer. "We would be honored," it said, "if Earth would join the galactic community not as a protectorate, but as a full member. Your perspective, your humanity. It's exactly what we need." The human team exchanged glances, the weight of the offer sinking in. They had entered this encounter hoping to learn about the stars. Instead, they had taught the stars something about themselves. As the sun rose on a new day, Earth stood on the brink of a new era. The challenges ahead were immense, but for the first time, humanity faced the cosmos not as insignificant newcomers, but as valued members of a grand galactic family. The human element, with all its flaws and all its brilliance, had found its place among the stars. Revelation and resolution. In the days following Earth's narrow escape from the entropy wave, the world struggled to come to terms with its new reality. The existence of alien life, the imminent threat to the galaxy, and humanity's sudden elevation to the galactic stage. It was almost too much to process. Cyril nodded, its gesture an imitation of the human motion it had observed. "Precisely. The Xenexa faced the wave centuries ago. We survived, but our rigid thinking limited our success. We were tasked with observing and assisting younger races, hoping to learn from them. So when you came to Earth," Eliana began. "We genuinely needed help," Cyril finished. "But we were also completing our own test, learning to recognize and value different ways of thinking." The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just survived its first cosmic crisis. It had passed a test it didn't even know it was taking. Earth's invitation to join the galactic community wasn't just a gesture of goodwill, it was a recognition of humanity's potential on a cosmic scale. As news of this revelation spread, reactions around the world were mixed. Some felt anger at being manipulated, others fear at the power wielded by these unseen elder races. But overwhelmingly, there was a sense of awe and excitement. Humanity had taken its first real steps into a larger universe, and the possibilities seemed endless. In the months that followed, Earth underwent rapid changes. The influx of alien knowledge accelerated technological development across all fields. Medical breakthroughs eradicated diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia. Clean energy solutions solved the climate crisis almost overnight. But it wasn't a one-way exchange. As alien diplomats and scientists flooded to Earth, they found themselves captivated by human culture, art, music, literature. The creative outpourings of humanity became highly prized across the galaxy. Earth became known as a hub of innovation, a place where logic and creativity collided in beautiful and unexpected ways. 1 year after the Xenix's first arrival, a grand ceremony was held to officially welcome Earth into the galactic community. Representatives from dozens of alien races gathered in a specially constructed amphitheater, a breathtaking blend of human and alien architecture. Dr. Chen, now serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador, stood before the assembled delegates. Beside her stood Cyril, its scales shimmering with colors of friendship and respect. A year ago, Eliana began, her voice carrying across the hushed crowd. We thought we were alone in the universe. We dreamed of the stars, never knowing they were dreaming of us too. She paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces, some humanoid, others utterly bizarre, all united in this moment. We've learned so much since then, about the vastness of the cosmos, about the incredible diversity of life that fills it. But most importantly, we've learned about ourselves. In facing our greatest challenge, we discover our greatest strengths, our creativity, our adaptability, our unwavering spirit in the face of the unknown. Cyril stepped forward, and we, the older races, have been reminded of truths we had forgotten. That progress isn't always linear, that efficiency isn't always the answer, and that sometimes the most beautiful solutions come from the most unexpected places. As the ceremony concluded and Earth took its place as the newest member of the galactic community, a sense of infinite possibility filled the air. The challenges ahead were enormous. The entropy wave still threatened distant sectors, and the complexities of interstellar politics were only beginning to reveal themselves. But as Dr. Chen looked out at the stars, now filled with the promise of new worlds to explore and new friends to meet, she felt a profound sense of hope. Humanity had faced its trial by fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to take its place among the stars. The universe, it turned out, was far stranger, more dangerous, and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. And humanity, with all its flaws and all its potential, was finally ready to embrace it all. As the first human ships prepared to venture beyond the solar system, carrying scientists, diplomats, and explorers to distant worlds, the words of a centuries-old astronaut echoed through time. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Humanity had taken that leap. The greatest adventure in history was just beginning.